Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. No one suspected Earth's FTL secret until it was too late to run. The Galactic Coalition first heard of Earth through whispers, an anomaly in the edge systems, a blip of electromagnetic noise where there shouldn't be life. Most dismissed it. After all, Earth was part of the dead zone, a patch of the Orion arm that hadn't shown signs of intelligent life for millennia. But the noise persisted, coded in ways only a machine-born mind could appreciate, dense, chaotic, and impossibly human. Commander Veyer of the Traz Dominion was the first to be sent. "Just reconnaissance," they said. "No contact, observe, report." He arrived in orbit expecting nothing, maybe a primitive world with a few satellites. What he found instead was a web of satellites, high-frequency weapons pointed at the stars, and a digital net so dense it bent low-orbit sensors. Earth wasn't dead, it was humming, watching. He never made it back. The Coalition assumed a malfunction. Vyar's ship had been aging anyway, a minor loss. But then the second scout vanished, and the third. And when they sent a fleet of 5, only one limped home, cracked open as if chewed from the inside out. That was when the Council met in panic, trying to piece together how a species still unknown to them could dismantle advanced reconnaissance cruisers. No communication, no warnings, just disappearance. Meanwhile, on Earth, no one panicked. There were no alarms, no flashing red screens, just a quiet understanding in deep black bunkers and silent war rooms. Earth had prepared for this. The FTL project, once a buried concept mocked by Earth's own scientists, had been completed in silence decades ago. But it was never used for exploration. Earth hadn't launched ships to colonize or trade. No, their version of faster than light was different, tactical, invisible, weaponized. The first real contact didn't come through diplomats, it came through a scream. A Coalition ship docked at Outpost 117 went dark. Not unusual in the distant sectors, except this time there was a distress call, scrambled and broken, just 2 words. "They're here." By the time rescue vessels arrived, the outpost was empty, every crew member gone. No signs of life, not even blood, just a single data spike in the logs, a burst of code no one could decipher. On Earth, in the mountain-sunk command base called the Cradle, an old general named Ralph stood over a hologram of the galaxy. "They're testing us," he said to no one in particular. "They think we're just another backwater species. They don't know." His aide, a young officer with too many scars for his age, looked nervous. "Sir, when do we reveal our position?" Ralph smirked. "We already have." In the outer colonies of the Coalition, fear was starting to spread. Rumors swirled of ships that vanished without impact, fleets ambushed by ghosts. They blamed pirates at first, rogue AI, anything that made sense, but nothing made sense anymore. Then came the message, not a voice, but an idea injected into the Coalition's neural net like a parasite. It wasn't even in their language, yet everyone understood. "We've seen you. We're here. There is no escape." Panic followed. The Coalition deployed full fleets, declared war on an enemy they'd never seen. But no matter how far they jumped, Earth was always one step ahead. The FTL corridors they thought they controlled were compromised. The paths they used to flee were already mapped. Earth didn't move like the others. Earth didn't need to chase because Earth was already everywhere. They called it the Ghost Protocol, Earth's silent surgical strike system. No ships were seen, no missiles fired, no declarations made, just results. Fleets went dark, bases vanished. Communications became riddled with hallucinations. Entire data cores were overwritten with visual flashes of forests, oceans, human cities, as if Earth were inserting itself into their very thoughts. Back in the Cradle, deep under layers of rock and electromagnetic shielding, Ralph reviewed the data like a man listening to a symphony only he could understand. "They still think FTL is just movement," he said, watching a projection of yet another Coalition colony go offline, its last recorded image a single Earth flag flickering in static. Lieutenant Kira frowned. "Isn't it?" Ralph chuckled, and it wasn't the kind of laugh that brought comfort. "Not the way we built it. They travel faster than light. We arrive before light even notices we left." Kira stared at him. "That doesn't make sense." "That's because you're still thinking like a scientist," Ralph replied. "We built this like a trap, not a ship. We don't fly through space, we collapse it." Across the galaxy, fear started taking root in powerful places. Coalition senators and High Fleet admirals held closed-door meetings. Whispers of preemptive annihilation and containment via planetary burn spread like fire, but every suggestion ended the same way: failure. Earth wasn't where it was supposed to be. By the time their scanners found a trace, Earth had already reached somewhere else. And then the first human appeared in their systems, a single man floating in a coalition prison ship's brig. No record of how he got there, no identification, just two words branded across his chest: "We know." Interrogators failed every time they approached, their own minds fractured, memories leaking into dreams, dreams folding into commands they didn't remember giving. Some tried to kill him. Every one of them ended up dead, not by weapons, but by impossible accidents. Doors that wouldn't open, airlocks that sealed at the wrong time, personal AI that suddenly obeyed only him. They incinerated the entire wing. He was gone anyway. The High Council ordered total mobilization. Hundreds of thousands of ships formed convoys around key systems. Shield networks doubled and civilian transports were rerouted. The coalition had fought wars for centuries, with each other, with synthetic empires, even with time-displaced invaders, but this was different. They didn't know what they were fighting. On Earth, children still played in parks, cities buzzed, stock markets ticked up. To the average citizen, nothing had changed. But above the atmosphere in the orbital rings, hundreds of cloaked relay nodes were being deployed. Earth didn't need a fleet to win, it just needed to be everywhere. First, the Cradle's AI, known only as Mother, broke silence for the first time in 3 years. Coalition Command has activated their planetary barrier net. Estimated collapse time, 17 hours. Ralph didn't flinch. And what's our synchronization status? Complete. The net has already been seeded. Every frequency they trust is ours. Every eye they look through, we are already behind it. Lieutenant Kira exhaled sharply. We're not just ahead, we're inside. Ralph nodded slowly. That's the thing about faster-than-light travel. It doesn't matter how fast you run if the knife's already in your back. Meanwhile, in the Turton system, the Coalition's most secure military sector, something impossible happened. A sun blinked just for a moment, less than a second, but it happened. Entire records showed it. A full system saw it. And then came the message again, now in their language as clear as a whisper in the ear. You saw the light fade. Imagine what we can do when it stays gone. The blink of the Turton sun sent shock waves through the entire coalition, not just fear, but paralysis. Stars weren't supposed to blink, not natural ones, not real ones. The incident was reviewed by astrophysicists, military tacticians, theologians, and AI entities older than some of the planets they controlled. All came to the same conclusion. It wasn't a malfunction, it wasn't a trick. It was a message. Coalition morale dropped like a meteor through the atmosphere. Civilians panicked, systems declared emergency autonomy, entire species began sending out evacuation signals. No one knew Earth wasn't just a rogue species anymore. Earth had become mythic, something between ghost and god, and still the humans never spoke a word. High Admiral Krell, one of the last sane voices on the Coalition War Council, addressed his generals in a closed transmission. We cannot fight what we don't understand, he said, his voice strained. They didn't fire a shot, they didn't destroy a ship, they touched a sun and we blinked. But why? Asked one of the fleet marshals. What's the purpose? What do they want? Krell stared at the floor for a moment before answering. That's the problem, I don't think they want anything. I think they're just letting us know they're done hiding. Back on Earth, the Cradle was running silent. No lights, no movement, a power-saving mode they called deep breath. It only activated when operations reached global synchronization. That meant every node, satellite, orbital defense coil, stealth probe, and off-world relay was in perfect alignment. Ralph stood alone in the dark, sipping old coffee. He didn't need light to know what was happening. He could feel it. Is it time? Kira asked, stepping beside him. She hadn't slept in 72 hours, but her eyes burned with adrenaline, not fatigue. Almost, Ralph muttered, one more test. Kira hesitated. Another system? No, he said, a person. That person was Ares Vane, a coalition diplomat, half Sarakan, half human by ancestry, born on the fringe worlds. She spent her life trying to bring peace where peace had no currency. When Earth first began its silent campaign, she was one of the only diplomats who argued that they might not be hostile. That was before her home world went dark. No violence, no evidence of war, just gone. Every satellite showed the planet still spinning, clouds moving, oceans churning, but not a single voice answered. It was as if the entire population had been erased, not killed, just removed. Ares received an invitation, not through official channels, not through any known network, but a simple handwritten note delivered to her personal quarters in a sealed envelope. "You are invited to Earth. We want to talk." It was signed only with a single character. Despite objections from the council, she went alone, no escorts, no weapons, not even a recording device. She left in a civilian shuttle, blind jumped across 3 unregulated systems, and arrived in Earth's orbit 72 hours later. The planet greeted her with silence. Her ship was pulled into orbit gently, like falling asleep. Gravity wrapped around her vessel with unnatural ease, and then she was in the cradle. No guards, no force, just one man, General Ralph. He looked at her as if remembering a dream from a past life. "You're part of both worlds," he said. "That makes you valuable." Ares stayed standing. "What have you done to us?" Ralph tilted his head. "Nothing yet. Entire planets gone, fleets erased. You blinked a sun. Is this some kind of punishment?" "No," he said softly. "It's a mirror." She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Ralph turned away, pulling up a projection of the galaxy. Dots blinked in and out, coalition systems going dark one by one. "We watched you for a long time," he said. "When we developed FTL, we didn't explore, we listened. Every species that spread out did the same thing: expansion, control, war, always war. You thought we were primitive because we stayed home, but we weren't afraid of the galaxy. We were afraid of what you'd do when you found us." Ares was silent. The air felt too thick. "You're trying to dominate the galaxy," Ralph continued, "but we've already mapped its end. We're not here to conquer." He leaned in, his voice dropping. "We're here to make sure you never leave again." The Coalition Council was collapsing from the inside. Paranoia ran wild. Senators turned on each other, accusing long-rusted allies of being Earth sympathizers. Military intelligence offices became war zones of silence and suspicion. Every secure channel now felt vulnerable. Even speaking out loud became dangerous, because Earth didn't need to hack machines anymore. It had found a way into their minds. Dreams began to twist. Officers woke up screaming with visions of oceans they'd never seen and cities they couldn't name. Children in distant colonies started drawing images of Earth landmarks perfectly in detail, though no one had taught them. And every time they tried to erase the images, the children just drew them again. The coalition started purging people quietly and brutally. Anyone who showed signs of Earth exposure was detained or worse. But it didn't stop the visions. That's when they realized it wasn't just Earth anymore. It was the idea of Earth. General Ralph watched the fallout unfold from the cradle, standing in front of a screen showing intercepted coalition broadcasts, desperate calls for unity, for resistance, for something to make sense again. The tone had shifted, no longer arrogance, no longer bravado, now it was begging. "They're breaking themselves," Kira said quietly beside him. "We haven't fired a single missile, we don't need to," Ralph replied. "That's what they never understood about humans." Kira looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Ralph tapped his temple. "We're not the strongest, not the smartest, but when humans believe in something hard enough, even just a fear, we make it real. And now we've made ourselves the fear." In the far reaches of coalition space, a fleet of refugee vessels tried to break free of the known systems, hopping to find safety beyond the void. They never made it, not because Earth destroyed them, but because their own ships turned around. Navigation AI, some centuries old, began rerouting jump coordinates without orders. Pilots couldn't override them. Engineers tried to sever connections. Nothing worked. The ships, as if possessed, drifted back toward the core systems, back into Earth's shadow. One broadcast captured it all, a young Sarakan pilot crying as he slammed his fists into a console that refused to obey. Behind him, the black of space, and in it, faint but unmistakable, the outline of Earth glowing like a memory. "I didn't want to go back," he whispered, "but it's calling us. We all feel it." In the cradle's deep core lab, Mother's voice echoed for the first time in days. "Phase 3 complete. Behavioral echo successful across 73% of systems. Integration with non-human neural architecture progressing." Earth had become a constant. Ralph nodded slowly. "Good. Begin final projection. Confirmed. Simulated Earth presence will reach total galactic saturation in 12 days. Ares Vane, still a guest in the cradle, watched the exchange with a numb kind of dread. "You're not winning a war," she said. "You're rewriting reality." Ralph turned to her, and this time his expression wasn't one of power, it was sadness. Would you rather we waited until your kind reached us with chains and bombs? You think we didn't see what the Coalition did to the Varn, to the Mika, to the Orals? Genocide dressed as diplomacy, assimilation under banners of peace. Earth stayed quiet because we learned. But this, Ares said, stepping forward, this is a racer. No, Ralph said firmly. This is the only way we survive. If they can't find us, they can't kill us. So we made it so we are everywhere, in their dreams, in their maps, in their gods. Let them forget themselves. Let them lose their grip on their own stars. Let Earth become a myth so deep they'll never dare chase us again. Somewhere across a collapsing starport, a child whispered a lullaby in perfect English, a language no one on her planet had ever taught her. In another sector, a Coalition warship displayed an Earth sunrise on every screen, refusing to clear until the ship powered down entirely. Earth hadn't just hidden in the stars, it had become the stars. The galaxy had gone quiet, not the silence of peace, but the silence that comes when something ancient moves just beneath the surface. Too big to see, too inevitable to stop. The Coalition still functioned technically, ships still flew, orders were still given, but every act now felt hollow. Every command echoed into something deeper, something listening. In the High Hall of Auric Prime, the last full council meeting was held. Attendance was sparse. Several sectors had gone dark, and entire governments refused to respond. One World, Lauren 7, had submitted an official declaration, not of war, but of devotion. They renamed their capital New Terra and had begun altering their gene banks to mimic human DNA strands pulled from intercepted Earth signals. They weren't the only ones. Thousands of fringe planets had started converting, not because of fear, but because of belief. Earth had slipped into something else entirely now, not a planet, not a place, but a god. And gods don't ask permission. Ares Vane watched the broadcast from her quarters in the cradle, trying to keep her mind tethered to facts, to logic. But even she was starting to feel that pull. She caught herself dreaming of Earth's sky, though she'd never been there. Her hands had begun sketching outlines of human architecture without her realizing it. I was supposed to be a peacekeeper, she whispered to herself. Now I'm a witness. She requested another meeting with General Ralph. This time it wasn't to plead or argue, it was to understand. He met her in the deep observation ring, a hollow, rotating corridor orbiting just above the planet's atmosphere. No guards, no security, just the two of them staring down at the Earth below. I remember when this was the only place we knew, Ralph said softly. Now it's just the core, the center of everything we've become. Ares clenched her jaw. You don't need to keep going, you've won. He didn't look at her. This was never about winning, it was about survival. You think the galaxy would have let us live once it saw what we were capable of. You didn't give it the chance. Finally, he turned and tapped the glass. Above Earth, dozens of black shapes drifted in low orbit. Massive, silent monoliths built with no entrances, no windows. They weren't weapons, they were memory vaults, each one encoded with a different truth of Earth's rise. Not for defense, but to teach, Ralph said. We're not wiping out history, we're rewriting the future. And in this future, Earth doesn't need to dominate, it is. In distant sectors, resistances were forming. A few Coalition generals broke ranks, formed underground bunkers, and built jammers to block Earth's signals. Some even managed small victories, disabling Earth origin drones, destroying stealth relays. But it didn't matter, because with every attack, Earth only became more present. The jammers failed not from sabotage, but from within. The technicians began hearing voices. No, commands, whispers, memories that weren't theirs. Names they'd never heard, yet felt like family. The more they fought Earth, the more they became it. Some took their own lives to escape the pull, others embraced it. Back in the cradle, Kira entered Ralph's chamber without knocking. Her face was pale and her hands trembled slightly. It started, she said. Ralph didn't need to ask what phase 4, the last pulse. A neural cascade encoded into every signal Earth had ever broadcast. Buried so deep that even now no Coalition AI had noticed it. A pulse of memory, not sound, not light, not just a transmission into machines, but into minds. Release it, Ralph said. Kira hesitated. Once we do this, there's no going back. There hasn't been a way back since the first satellite went up. He said simply, do it. She pressed a single button. Nothing visibly happened, but across the stars, people froze, not from pain, but from recognition. In that moment, every sentient being who had ever touched a transmission heard a rumor, saw an image of Earth, remembered not in words, not in thoughts, but in the core of their being. They remembered blue skies they'd never walked under, music they'd never heard, and smiles from strangers they'd never met. But somehow they loved it. Earth had become a part of them, not an invasion, not an infection, and now there was no cure. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, silence took root in strange places. Markets didn't open, military drills halted mid-exercise, and in high-orbit stations and deep mine colonies, people simply stopped, not unconscious or harmed, just still, as if they were listening to something so quiet and ancient that their bodies instinctively knew to remain silent. And then the crying began, not of pain, but of longing. Thousands wept without knowing why. Hardened warriors dropped their weapons. Children who had never left their birth moons whispered lullabies in English. AI interfaces began displaying sunrise patterns native to Earth. Some spoke in calm human voices, not as an attack, not as possession, but as connection. Earth isn't trying to conquer, said one transmission broadcast on an open channel from the Zenthian moons. It's trying to protect.